right, so welcome back everybody to our latest episode of The Nest. And we are now at week 11 of the 2022 NFL season, and the Patriots are returning from their bye week to take on the New York Jets for the second time this season at Gillette Stadium. And we'll be discussing that matchup, and we'll also be continuing to discuss the strong play of both the Celtics and Bruins. And of course, the FIFA World Cup is tomorrow, so we will be discussing that as well and our predictions. And joining me for today's episode is Ujan Talukdar, our soccer expert. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's good to be back. It's a great time for sports. It's odd to say that the World Cup is starting tomorrow, and here we are, and nearly Thanksgiving in the U.S. But it is what the schedule is, and looking forward to today's episode.
Definitely, yeah. And just for our audience, because the Patriots' next game after tomorrow is on Thanksgiving, we will have a special episode tomorrow recapping the Jets game and also previewing the matchup against the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday. So stay tuned for that episode. But yeah, let's first talk about the Patriots-Jets matchup tomorrow. So obviously it's the second meeting between these two teams. Week 8 was the first time the Patriots won that matchup 22-17 back on October 30th. And that was at MetLife Stadium. Patriots really needed to win that game, and they did. I mean, big performance. 22-17. Ramondre Stevenson, 16 carries for 71 yards, 7 catches for 72 yards. So he was the star of the show for the offense that day. So, and the defense, of course, was terrific. Zach Wilson threw 3 interceptions. Devin McCourty had 2 of them. So I am expecting more of that type of strong play. Recently, the Patriots defense has played well the last 2 weeks, but they're going to need to play well tomorrow again to have a chance to win this game. Is that what you're sort of taking away, Ujan, from this?
Yeah, most definitely. I think the Jets were kind of their own enemy in the first matchup, because I think Zach Wilson made some really poor decisions. One of the interceptions to McCourty was, he was trying to throw the ball away. You just have to throw the ball out of bounds, and it's still in the field of play to the point where McCourty could still catch the ball with both feet in bounds. So, and the other one, you just overshoot your defender. And I think it was right after I think that was inside the last 2 minutes of the first half, where I think, if I recall correctly, the Patriots turned the ball over on downs, and then immediately that was a very odd last 2 minutes of the first half, and it cost the Jets points, and I think ultimately the Patriots kind of, I wouldn't say ran away with it, but they controlled the second half. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it was 22-10, right? And at one point it was 10-3. And I think Rohan and I were discussing this, like a 10-3 deficit now for the Patriots isn't what it used to be when Tom Brady was here. 10-3 deficit with Tom Brady, no problem. But with Mac Jones, it was 10-3. He threw that interception, which got called back because of the roughing the passer penalty. And that was huge because ultimately, I don't know if the Patriots are able to come back from 17-3 at this point, especially with Mac Jones. But I mean, overall, I hope Mac Jones gained more confidence from that performance. And of course, after beating the Colts last weekend, hopefully he's able to at least get more comfortable, but he hasn't looked great at all this year. So that's going to sort of be the key. Like, how do the Patriots sort of dictate this game? I'm expecting another big game from Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. The run game is kind of the strength. And the defense overall seems like they've kind of figured out Zach Wilson so far. Like, I mean, right now, Zach Wilson is 0-3 against the Patriots, I believe. Or no, I think he's 0-2 because I think last year the second matchup was against Mike White, the 54-13 win.
No, but Zach, that was the game. No, but that game, like when Mike White came in, Zach Wilson was hurt, so Zach Wilson.
Right, yeah, okay.
So
yeah, so 0-3. Okay, yeah. I mean, so far Zach Wilson has done terribly against this Patriots defense. So I think it'll be interesting. I think Belichick at least has an idea of how to game plan for Zach Wilson at this point. The Jets do have talent, though. I mean, against the Bills, I mean, a very impressive 20-17 win against the Bills. So if we are hyping up the Bills as a Super Bowl contender, which they should be, then the Jets beat the Bills. So the Patriots beating the Jets, that's a quality win. That's what I'd say. It doesn't mean that the Patriots are at the level of the Bills, but at least means the Patriots are competitive and they're not easy to just beat in any given week. So I think overall, I want to see like continued strong play. I mean, Matthew Judon has been excellent, 11.5 sacks this season. And last time they sacked Wilson 2 times. So, and 3 interceptions. So they really got after him, really forced him to make bad decisions. And that's sort of going to be the key again for tomorrow's matchup, I think. Just keep pressuring him and try to make him beat you. He hasn't been able to do it so far. So That's sort of what I'd say. Ujan, is there anything else? Like for the offense, do you want to see anything? Like how concerned are you about the offensive line? We haven't really talked about this recently, but last time the Patriots played the Jets, Mac Jones was sacked 6 times. So, I mean, this has sort of been a worrying trend this season. The offensive line has kind of not looked that good. And the Jets definitely have pass rushers who can give Mac trouble. So, I mean, are you concerned at all about the offensive line, especially like as we enter like a schedule where the opponents are looking like you play Buffalo twice, you play Miami again, and you play Minnesota, who's 8-1. So you're playing a very daunting schedule now with a shaky offensive line. Are you concerned at all? And with the Jets too, of course, who are 6-3.
Yeah, I am definitely concerned, and I will say first and foremost, we all know what happened after the bye week last season. Um, Now that being said, this offense is different from last season, but in terms of personnel, I would say the offensive line isn't really a huge concern. I mean, I understand that they haven't been performing that great. The return of David Andrews will help, provided he will be good to go for Sunday. But I don't know if it'll like really help the if it'll really help the protecting Mac Jones. The thing that I've noticed with Mac Jones is he's holding onto the ball for quite a long time in the pocket, which I consider to be a concern because it's either he's indecisive with the ball on who to pass to, or the receivers aren't getting open. And I think it's a combination of both, and because I feel like we're seeing Max scramble for positive yards more than we would last season. Um, so I don't. I think the offensive line is partially to blame, but at the same time, it's not really the receivers need to get open for Mac Jones to throw, and I just don't think it's happening so as often as we would see as last season.
I agree. And just another point I just wanted to emphasize, you talked about the bye week struggles. It's not really just the last year that they've struggled out of the bye week. Really, since 2019, they've sort of really had a shaky ending to the regular season. Like, obviously in 2018, they won the Super Bowl, but like 2019, they really kind of struggled at the end. So I don't think it's necessarily just a bye week issue. It's just sort of how they sort of come and play in December. And that's really been a concern the last like 3 seasons now. Obviously, 2020 with Cam Newton, they were 6-6, and then they finished 7-9. And last year they were 9-4, and they finished 1-3. Really 1-4 because of the playoff loss to Buffalo. So it's been an ongoing trend, even with Tom Brady in 2019 when they started 8-0 and then finished 4-5, including the loss to the Titans in the wild card game. So overall, the Patriots kind of have sort of shown this now the last 4 seasons, even with Tom Brady, that they haven't really done well in December onwards. So that's going to be the true test. Like right now, like last year, they had a 7-game winning streak, but then after the bye week, which was they had that loss to the Colts, and then everything kind of spiraled out of control. But overall, like this is going to be a daunting schedule this year because now you're 5-4, but you're still in last place. I'm not as worried about the last place part because, like, theoretically, you still have a shot at the playoffs, even as a last place team, because 3 teams in the AFC will make it as a wild card. So theoretically, all 4 teams in the AFC East, which is actually what the
And
current
let's not
situation
forget,
is.
yeah, and let's not forget the Patriots are in a playoff spot going into this week too.
Yeah, so
There's
that's why they need this win to get to 6-4 because then you play Minnesota, then you play Buffalo again, and then Arizona, who isn't looking that good. I think you can beat Arizona. I think you can beat Vegas, who's been an absolute disaster this season with Josh McDaniels. But then you have the Bills twice. You still have the Dolphins. It's not going to be an easy schedule. Then, of course, the Cincinnati Bengals, who just made it to the Super Bowl last season. It's going to be a difficult slate of games. But that said, I think you actually have a shot, even against Buffalo. Yes, Buffalo is probably better than you, but I think you can beat them once at least, and I think you can beat Miami at home. So these are winnable games. Like I'm not saying that this is a Super Bowl contending team, but this is definitely a team that can go 5-3 in the stretch and get into the playoffs at 10-7. I don't think that you can just automatically count the Buffalo games as losses. I don't. I think you can beat Buffalo once, and I think you can beat Miami at home. I think you can definitely beat Vegas. You can definitely beat Arizona, and you can definitely also beat who else? And obviously the Jets tomorrow. You can win all these games. Maybe the only ones which will be tough are the Buffalo road games. Obviously the Vikings are going to be really hard, and but I think there's a path for you to go 10-7. I do. So, but it has to start with tomorrow. If you can win this game, go to 6-4, and then play the Vikings on Thanksgiving. Even the Vikings on Thanksgiving, I think you can hang on with the Vikings. Like, I mean, Kirk Cousins and the Vikings are very good, but also Kirk Cousins has a pretty bad track record on primetime games. And that's what it is, a primetime game. It's going to be the 8 o'clock slate. So we'll see how Belichick kind of handles that. He has had success against Kirk Cousins before. So I'm not even ready to like rule out that the Vikings game is an automatic loss. The Vikings are a terrific team, but I think the Patriots have a shot against them too. Like, there really isn't like any team I go out there and say, aside from, and even the second Buffalo game, by the way, just for reference, that's the last week of the season. So if Buffalo's already clinched a playoff spot, they might just rest their starters, and that might just be a win. There's a really kind of a chance, I think, that you could end up sweeping Buffalo if you can win that first game at home, and then Buffalo rests all their starters week 17. You might end up beating Buffalo 2 times. I don't think you can just count any of these teams as just automatic losses at this point. Obviously, I know it's sort of going into hypotheticals, but all I'm saying is like these next, like it's there for the taking for you to really go on a run and at least make a statement. If you can do that, then I think that just opens up a lot more credibility for Belichick too, especially for how he's kind of handled this coaching staff and the whole roster the last 2 years. So I think this is a winnable game, and I don't think any game in the remaining slate is one where you just pencil in as a loss. You can't do that. I think you're good enough to at least be in contention for all these games. Obviously, yeah, in some matchups you'll be favored and some you won't be favored, and that's okay. But I won't accept that any game is an automatic win or loss. Like I'm not gonna or a loss, an automatic loss. Do you agree with that, Ujan? Like I think they can pretty much hang in there with any team.
Oh, absolutely. And I will say that going off of the first thing I will say, at least for this part, is if you beat the Jets and it comes to a point where the Patriots and Jets have the same record, the Patriots will have the tiebreaker. And if you go 2-0 against them, but just by going 2-0 against them. So that's why I think this game is absolutely crucial. And let's not forget, the Jets still have to go play in Minnesota. And I think there are some other games like common opponents that the Jets have left that the Patriots do as well. I mean, the Jets have to still go to Buffalo. And I think they have to play Miami as well, unless they played them. I can't remember.
No, they played them once. They beat Miami.
Okay. Right, but then there still has to be a second game, right? So I think if it's one thing to not be last in the division, but like I would say perhaps like a 5 or 6 seed, I'm actually gonna be okay with that because for obviously that's a playoff spot, but then the higher you are as a wild card team, the more favorable matchup you'll have like in the wild card round, even though it's a road game, right? So I mean, I'm not trying to get ahead of ourselves here, but this is what could be the difference. This is the difference between perhaps getting a tiebreaker and not getting a tiebreaker.
Also, just worth saying, because we're talking about the wild card this much, the division isn't out of play yet, right? They're 5-4. The Bills are 6-3 at this point, and Miami, I believe, is 7-3. I think so. I mean, at this point, like it's basically 3 and 4 losses. So if Miami drops another game and the Patriots like continue to at least, if they're somehow able to win tomorrow and then against Minnesota, then all of a sudden the Patriots are 7-4 and they might actually potentially be like second place. I don't know entirely how the standings are working right now. I don't have it up, but I wouldn't just necessarily rule out that the division is completely out of play at this point. Let's not forget last year, the Patriots actually led the division by 2 games in December until they completely imploded. So they were 9-4 and the Bills were 7-6, but the Bills won their last 4 games and the Patriots went 1-3. That was the difference, and that cost the Patriots dearly.
And the other difference was not the other difference, but at 9-4, they were also the number 1 seed in the entire AFC. Let's not forget about that going into.
Yeah, I mean, I think this year is going to be tougher because I think Kansas City looks a lot stronger this year than they did last year. Like they briefly had that slump, which I think made them kind of more vulnerable. And then, I mean, obviously the Titans kind of came in. So, I mean, Titans, I think, are the 1 seed right now, or maybe it's Kansas City. So, I mean, it's interesting right now to sort of see how the games are sort of going to play out. I mean, I think the AFC this year is going to be a lot more harder to be like in that spot for the 1 seed, but I do think the division might not be out of reach yet. You can't tell me right now if Miami's just 7-3, they're only 1.5 games ahead of you. So It'll be tough, but I think it's doable. Like for you to potentially make up ground and make a real run at the division.
Yeah, well, if that's the case, then if you say it's 1.5 game difference, it's really 2.5 because Miami beat you week one. Miami beat New England week one. So that makes the Miami game at Gillette Stadium, which is for a later episode, very important, as probably as important as the Jets game. So, but that's why the division games are so important in the NFL. It can be the difference between, we're talking about home game in the playoff or a road game in the playoff in the wild card round. So, you know, I think for the Patriots it's just one game at a time, and because you don't really know which Patriots is going to show up. And honestly, I hope that with the return of David Andrews and the strong play of Matthew Judon, that the Patriots can get out of Week 11 with a 6-4 record, and then going into Minnesota Thanksgiving night. These next few days are going to be crucial for the Patriots for the and that might just determine how the rest of the season will pan out.
Yeah. So I think we're at the stage now where we go with our predictions for tomorrow's matchup. So Ujan, starting with you, what's your prediction for tomorrow?
So I will say that the Patriots at home, they've really been hit or miss. Of course, beating Indianapolis was a great showing by the defense. It wasn't really a great showing by the offense per se. The one touchdown was you started on the 2 yard. You only had to go 2 yards, and after the blocked punt, that's almost a gimme at that point, right?
Basically, Jonathan Jones was your offense because he scored the touchdown too on the pick six, and then he blocked the punt.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No kidding. And of course, the Patriots had so many sacks on Sam Ellinger that the Colts offense couldn't really get going. So, now we're not comparing Zach Wilson to Sam Ellinger, but at the same time, this is the Patriots defense and this is Gillette Stadium. And while I do not believe it'll be a 26-3 kind of game, it is going to be quite a low scoring game. I do believe the Patriots are going to pull this out. I am going with a score of 24-20. Ramondre Stevenson's going to have another big game on the ground.
Interesting. I don't know why, but I'm not having a great feeling for this game. But maybe I'm still sort of thinking, like, I think it's going to be a tougher matchup. Like, I don't think the Patriots are necessarily going to lose for sure, but I'm a little nervous, sort of, because, like, I think the Jets are really riding high after the win against Buffalo, and they are a good team now. So, like, they're no longer the same Jets from even last year when the Patriots just could beat them easily. So, I don't know. I'm going to probably go with an upset. I'm going to go Jets 20, Patriots 17 in overtime. So, unfortunate. I really hope I'm wrong. I will gladly come on tomorrow and admit I was wrong. But I
Well,
don't
the
know.
last time the Jets beat the Patriots, it was an overtime game, and that was 2015 when the Jets had Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Actually, there's an interesting thing I just realized about that. So the Jets haven't beaten the Patriots in regulation since that 2010 wild card, or sorry, the divisional round matchup in 2010. That was the last time the Jets beat the Patriots in regulation, because and in the regular season, I think the last time they beat them was, I guess, 2010, the regular season, when they beat them, like, I think week 2. Randy Moss had that catch against Darrelle Revis, the one-handed grab, a long time ago. But that was the last time the Patriots actually lost to the Jets in regulation. The last 2 losses to the Jets were actually 2013 in overtime, when Geno Smith actually was the Jets quarterback at the time, and 2015, obviously, with Fitzpatrick. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to go 20-17. It is tough for me to do it, but I don't know. At least no one can say I'm biased now. So, in a must-win game, I just went with the Jets. So, we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I'll gladly come on tomorrow and admit I was wrong. We'll have to do that. So, anyways, yeah. I mean, also, just for the record, I picked the Jets to win 31-21 for the first matchup. So, my track record for this obviously hasn't been great so far. So, maybe I'll jinx it. But yeah, I mean, that will be our prediction. Ujan has the Patriots winning 24-20. I have Jets winning 20-17. So, anyways, let's move on to the Celtics now. And this team has been just dominating. I mean, just very impressive. Like against the Thunder, that was a little bit more higher scoring, 126 to 122. Hawks was a good one, 126 101. And against the Pelicans last night, 117 to 109. I mean, I think overall we're sort of starting to see like what I think I really like the most is, for example, against Atlanta, it was like Tatum with 19 points, Jaylen Brown with 22 points, Grant Williams with 18 points, Derek White with 16 points. So it's a very balanced effort, which is, I think, really good because basically the superstars aren't the ones who have to carry the team or the load always. The superstars like Tatum and Brown can come in late and sort of take over, but they're not basically relying on giving up too much energy early on, which is going to be huge to have a great cast of players who can kind of support them. Right now, I really cannot complain at all. I mean, even just Peyton Pritchard had 14 against the Hawks, and Sam Hauser, who's actually turning into a pretty nice deep threat now from three. I'm happy with his development. Him and Luke Cornett both at 15. So, I mean, really, this was kind of the emphasis of a team effort win. And I think so far, everything has been going great. Like against the Pelicans, it was Derek White who had 26 points. Jason Tatum had 19 points. So it's good because I think Tatum last year, he was very tired at the end of the season against the Warriors. It kind of showed the fatigue really showed at that point. So I think right now, like for that, he doesn't have to carry the load. Him and Brown don't have to carry the load, and they can save their energy for the playoffs. It's going to be enormous, and the team is just gelling so well. It's really fun to watch. I'm really excited to see this team. They're playing the Bulls next game at Chicago, and the Bulls have beaten the Celtics once. The Celtics, one of the three Celtics losses, but the Celtics have beating the Bulls in the other matchup. So right now, I'm very happy with the Celtics and with Brogdon coming back, and hopefully with Robert Williams coming back sometime in January. This team is going to be formidable, assuming everyone stays healthy, which I hope so. I mean, this team is going to make a deep run in the playoffs. I've kind of said this from the start. I really think the only team I'm really that worried about is probably Milwaukee with Giannis and Chris Middleton, who will come back at some point. That's the only team in the East I'm concerned about, but I think this team is way stronger than they were last year, which is saying something because they made it to the finals. So, I mean, that's my takeaway from this team. I think this team is looking really good. They just got to keep it up. I mean, you got a good split. I mean, they're beating good teams too at this point. The Pelicans are a good team. The Hawks in Atlanta are a playoff team right now. And I mean, the Thunder are kind of like a rebuilding team. So these aren't like necessarily, I mean, I guess the Thunder aren't that great, but they are still a good, like, they're not like a team you can just take lightly in a given week. So these are good teams they're beating. They beat the Grizzlies in Memphis. And the Grizzlies are one of the best teams. Like they're beating everyone right now, regardless of whether or not they're good or bad. And that's a really sign of a great team. So Joe Mazzulla has done a terrific job so far, but Tatum has just been terrific. And I'm just happy to see the whole team just sort of gelling and vibing right now. Most important thing to me. Everything looks really good. So just keep it up.
Yeah, I will say, having watched the game against the Pelicans last night, there was a run in the fourth quarter where the Celtics were up by, by double digits, and then suddenly New Orleans got it down to six, cut the lead to six, sorry. And at that point, you're thinking, oh, Missoula's going to call a timeout. But no, he let the guys play, and he wanted those guys to figure it out. This is what I like about Missoula. And, he wants this team to experience these kind of, like, these low points during the games. Like, yes, you're still winning, but New Orleans has all the momentum. The Celtics are away from home, and suddenly, things are about to when things seem to start to unravel, Missoula says, "You guys figure it out. Like, I'm not gonna call a timeout." Like, and Missoula even said, even if the only thing that you get from calling a timeout is you give your guys everybody 2 minutes rest, which Missoula can give instructions during a timeout and all that, but it's up to the players to execute, and he knows that, and he's making the guys go execute. And even when Jason Tatum, he had 19 points, which is kind of low for his standards, but at the same time, he's distributing the ball. Derek White having almost 30 points, Jaylen Brown having like
27.
Yep, 27. Thank you. It's not, you're not going to depend on Jason Tatum to have monster numbers every night. It's one night it's going to be a Derek White night. As the Pelicans game showed, there'll be a game where Jason Tatum, like everybody talks about Jason Tatum. There'll be a game when everyone talks about Grant Williams. Those you just don't. I think this team is deeper than it was last season, and that's a good thing because I think the depth is what really led to the Celtics'
I
downfall.
also think they're playing with a chip on their shoulder because they know they really could have won that finals last year. So I think they're extra motivated this time to get back to that situation and hopefully this time close the deal. So I think that's another thing. I think them getting to the finals, losing the way that they did, losing those last 3 games, knowing that they really had a shot, but they just sort of kept making the same mistakes, which they really worked on rectifying this offseason. I think that's really also what's like driving them. I think they're really hungry to get back to that stage. And I hope they can do it. I mean, they look really good right now. I do think the defense has gotten a little better. Like that is one thing I'd still like to kind of see a little bit more improvement on. Like 122 against the Thunder, even with Shia Galagius Alexander on that team, like you probably shouldn't be allowing 122 to them. But like at this point, they're winning these games. They did allow only 101 to the Hawks, and I do agree against the Pelicans. It looked like they were kind of getting a little complacent from time to time. Like they kept on trying to shoot threes in the fourth quarter, and they kept missing them. Fortunately, the Pelicans also missed their threes, so it was just kind of like a back and forth for a couple minutes where everyone was just missing these shots. But overall, I mean, I do kind of like think that they're still in the right direction right now, and I mean, yeah, at this point, I mean, they're really the two teams that have beaten them are the Cavaliers, who did it twice early on, and the Bulls. So right now they're playing great
But then
basketball.
that being said, I will say the thing about that Bulls game, you had Missoula ejected and you had Grant Williams ejected. That was just an ugly night, and you
Yeah, that was
know,
also the night the Patriots lost to the Bears, right? On Monday night.
yeah, I believe so.
Isn't it actually interesting? Oh, I guess I was about to say, yeah, no. I was just that was a bad night against Chicago altogether.
Yeah, but the thing is, right? Not every night's gonna be perfect, and we all know that. It's a 82 game season. The season is not won or lost on one game. If it was, then we would say the Celtics are. We wouldn't have all these praise on the Celtics. So, and Chicago, they're not like a top team in the East, but I think they're a playoff team. You know, so losing one game to Chicago is not really, especially early on. I always believe that in the NBA, it's not about how you start; it's how you finish the season. And if you go into the post like late in the season, like completely healthy, you got a shot at a at a run to what we hope will be another NBA Finals, a few NBA Finals nights at the TD Garden. So only time will tell. It's still November 19th, so a lot can happen between now and then.
Yeah, definitely. No. So, but right now, like, really, there isn't much to really critique at this point. I mean, they're beating good teams and they're beating bad teams. They're basically beating whoever's on their schedule, and they're doing it convincingly too. So, right now, I'm very satisfied with this effort. Hopefully, they continue to play this well. And obviously, yeah, of course, there'll be rough patches in the season, but I'm not as worried about this anymore. Like, if they had a loss, like when they lost to the Cavaliers, I was frustrated, but I was also like, you know what, like it's fine. Like it was just like Cavs, it wasn't their night. Cavs played great and the Cavs beat them in overtime. Actually, both of the losses to the Cavs were in overtime. So, I mean, it took an overtime effort to beat the Celtics at this point. So we'll see. I mean, I think they're just playing outstanding. So now let's talk about the other Garden team, who is also just steamrolling and dominating teams right now. Like the Bruins are just outstanding right now, like 15-2 to start the season. I mean, winning against Vancouver and Linus Allmark might be one of the biggest surprises of the season, right? Like, who expected him to be like the best goaltender in the NHL at this point, especially with the Bruins? But I think Jim Montgomery, like, I mean, right now, like he can't do anything wrong. I mean, 15 wins to start the season. Also, good to see Cassidy doing well in Vegas, but I think the coaching change is necessary at this point. It seems like both needed a fresh start, and both are doing a terrific job. I mean, Olmark against the Flyers, 22 saves. It was great to see Krejci with those 2 goals, right? So right now, the Bruins are just dominating. Like, Ujan, is there anything, like, I guess you would sort of say, like kind of like the Celtics, like, is there anything on the Bruins perspective you would say that like with their record they might be kind of overshadowing, which might be kind of a concern? Is there anything you have for that?
I think the thing with the Bruins is you need more after the first line, and I said this from last season and years past. It was good to see David Krejci get on the scoreboard twice against Philadelphia, but at the same time, you need to have this kind of production like every time you step on the ice. And I'm not saying it has to be always be David Krejci, but I'm saying maybe Tomas Nosek even got a goal against the Flyers, which is like you need some production on like the second, third line. And I think, just like this, how the Celtics didn't have a lot of depth, and it showed going into the tail end of last season. I think it was the same thing for the Bruins just in the first round. You didn't have, and last year in the playoffs there wasn't really much production after Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrana. Having Charlie McAvoy back from off-season surgery, that's a plus. Um, having Marchand back as well, that's also a plus. So I think the team is definitely getting better, but at the same time, as long as the team stays healthy, I think we might be in for a deep run with the Bruins too. Of course, it's early to say. And the other thing I will say is the Bruins have not lost at home yet. They've won their first 10 games at home, and they could make it 11 tonight against Chicago. So it wouldn't have, it would just be great you know, to win these games. And, there are some signature wins in there, like overtime winning against Pittsburgh is there as part of the start to the season. So I think there's a lot of good stuff going on with both teams who play at the TD Garden right now.
Yeah, it looks like the Garden might be open pretty late this year, up into June, potentially, hopefully. So right now, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think right now the Bruins are just cruising, and at this point, really just continuing to do what they're doing. Like, yeah, Chicago, they should beat tonight. They should beat Chicago. So it's interesting. I guess the Bruins are playing Chicago, and the Celtics are also playing Chicago a few days later. Always interesting when those things intersect. But yeah, I mean, right now, that's sort of our Bruins coverage, just continuing to play great hockey. So now, Ujan, I know you've been very excited about this. So let's talk about the World Cup that starts tomorrow in Qatar. So obviously, it's going to be very interesting. Like, this could be the last World Cup for Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, even Neymar, who said that he doesn't know if he's going to play in 2026. So what are your thoughts about the World Cup? Like, who do you think is like going to be the team you're like, I guess the teams, who are you most kind of like, who do you say this is like a legacy World Cup for? Like, really kind of legacy on the line, besides like the obvious Messi, Ronaldo, and Neymar? Like, is there any other players we're sort of like not thinking about who like also kind of have something riding on this World Cup?
Well, I don't know about, let's say, necessarily players. I would say, like there are a lot of, I think this is a very open World Cup in the sense that you don't really know what to expect. This is the first World Cup held in the Middle East, which has already stirred a lot of controversy. Most recently, the no selling of alcohol inside stadiums, even though which is a complete reversal from a ruling in September. um, and the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, came out with a very what I thought to be a strange speech that today, regards to the World Cup. I didn't really get the context of what he was trying to say with regards to the World Cup. He didn't really talk about the games, and he wants everybody to stop talking about the controversy and just focus on playing the games, which I think, even it's odd for me to say this, but even after the World Cup's over, I don't think people are going to consider this like a very memorable World Cup. I mean, I had the opportunity to potentially go to Qatar, and I'm actually going to say I'm glad I didn't, considering what I'm hearing. Um, but going to the original question, I will say that Messi has already got a international trophy, the Copa America. Ronaldo has international trophy, the Euros from 2016. So uh, I think this is really for Brazil now. I think Neymar is like, he's the most expensive. Um,
Neymar have one too, though, like a Copa.
I mean, he does. That was 2019, actually. I beg your pardon. Yes, um, but I think for all of them, the World Cup is kind of like the icing on the cake for them. Messi made a World Cup final, lost to Germany in 2014. For Ronaldo, I think this is the best chance for him, and I do believe that Portugal are severe underdogs in this tournament. I actually have them going to the semifinal for which is which is a very bold call, but I think with Ronaldo, this is the best opportunity for him. You know, you have Bruno Fernandes in midfield. You have Rafa, I believe it's Rafael Leao on the wing. Um, but you know, I think there's a really good chance for Portugal to to um to make it to the semifinal. I mean, they have Uruguay in the group, they got Ghana in the group, which some USA fans will have nightmares about, and there's also South Korea. So I think that it's a definitely winnable group for Portugal, and I do believe that they will get past Spain in the quarterfinal, which is I am making the call right now. It's going to happen. So I think for this is the one for Portugal, and to an earlier point you made, this is actually definitely going to be Lionel Messi's last World Cup. He has said that a couple weeks ago.
Well, I mean, players can always change their mind, right? I mean, we saw that with Tom Brady, right? Who retired then
That is
unretired.
also true.
So how
But
do we know Messi for sure is
we shall see.
retiring? So, but I mean, I also want to ask you about the U.S. men's team, right? Obviously, they're back in the World Cup first time since 2014, right? Obviously, 2018 they missed the World Cup, but 2014 they lost in the round of 16 to Belgium. Of course, that was Tim Howard's record-saving performance, but ultimately Belgium's offense was too much at the end. But this is the first time in 8 years the U.S. is back in the World Cup. So, how far do you see them going? Their group is definitely one. I think they can make it out of the group stage, right? England, Iran, and Wales. So I think all three of those, besides England, who was probably the best, it was easily the best of the bunch from that group. Like it's just, I think the U.S. has a shot to at least make it out of the group stage. Don't you think so?
Definitely. But and you say England, but the thing is the US has never lost to England in World Cup play. And the last time the US played England, I think you might know this
Yeah,
one.
it was 20. I agree. It's been a long time, but like that said, like this England team is really, really good. Like, I mean, they probably should have won the Euro last year, right? Like, this is a different England team. So, like, obviously, yeah, historically, the US has done okay, but like, just sort of looking at roster to roster, right? Like, and it's like different coaches too. Like in 2010, I don't even know who England's coach was at the time, but I think for the US, it was Bob
It was
Bradley.
Fabio Capello,
And it
the
was Bob
Italian.
Bradley, right, at the time for the US in
Yeah,
2010.
and Rob Bradley for
So
the
it's like
US,
different
yes.
coaches, right? Now it's Greg Berhalter versus what's his name? Southgate, right?
Gareth Southgate.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
Gareth Southgate.
well, I think he's a pretty good manager. So it'll be interesting to sort of see. Like, I don't like. I think that'll be a very interesting matchup. Actually, the Black Friday coming up.
Yeah.
So
But I think I it is true, but at the same time, the US need to take advantage of the game against Wales on Monday. That is going to be crucial because Wales like to sit back and try to attack and like to counterattack. That's historically what Wales have done. It was evident in 2016. I know this is 2016, but I think for Wales, the player to watch is Kiefer Moore, the central striker, and how he goes up against the U.S. center backs. Um, at the the U.S. will try to play on the front foot, especially against Wales and most likely Iran too. But I think the England one is where I think it'll be the most open game, like perhaps end to end. I don't really know how well the team has gelled, considered like how what the chemistry is like compared to, like with about 1 week of full team preparation. But at the same time, it goes that's true for all the other 31 nations participating in the tournament. So I don't want to use that as an excuse, but that certainly plays a factor, as will the weather. I mean, I understand that the at least the Iran game, or not the Iran game, the USA Wales and England USA will take place at 10 p.m. local time in Qatar. So while it won't be very hot, it'll still be warm, and the players will feel it. It's a desert country, so I think I don't know if it won't. I say end to end, but it won't be like as end to end as you would see like in like Premier League games, or like if it was going to be played anywhere else.
that's an interesting point. I think like 10 p.m. matchups are just very odd times, like locally, to have a matchup, especially like such a critical, important games. So I don't know. I still don't really know why they selected Qatar to be the host. I mean, I don't think there's like a good reason to select Qatar as the host, but it is what it is at this point. So, yeah, I mean, I think the US should at least have a pretty strong showing. I'm probably picking them to lose in the round of 16 likely, but I mean, I don't know, for like winning the World Cup at least, who's like I don't know, what is your World Cup prediction, Ujan? You had France in 2018, so there is credibility to Ujan. I think you had 2014 Germany
Mhm.
too.
I did. Yep, I
Okay,
did.
so he has predicted the last two World Cup winners correctly. So I mean, this is basically going to be the answer.
So I do. Uh, so in 2014, Brazil was the favorite at home country. At their home, I actually predicted the right matchup in 2014, Germany Argentina final. Um, no, I didn't have all semifinalists, but I had the final. In 2018, I had France beating, I believe it was Spain, but Spain ended up losing in the round of 16, and obviously, but France won that. This time it's between Argentina and Brazil as like the two favorites, but France is also in the mix, and for the defending World Cup champion. But I do believe that while France, and I will also say France will not win it because there's always a World Cup hangover, and I'm not saying it's gonna hit them as much, but think about it. 2006, Italy won the World Cup, and in 2010 they didn't make it out of the tournament. 2010, Spain won the World Cup, and then 2014 they only won 1 out of 3, and they didn't make it out. And last World Cup, Germany didn't even make it out of there after winning it. Now, I do believe France is gonna get out of their group, and they will go far. And I do believe they're going to the final. But I do see France losing, and this might be a surprise, but I do see Germany lifting the trophy in Doha uh, in mid-December.
Wow,
This
Germany over France. Wow.
Yeah, and that would be it just happens to be the how the bracket works out, because we could see a Brazil Germany game in the quarterfinal, and that I think is a toss up. But considering Brazil's history when it comes to um like World Cup knockout rounds, think about 2010 they lost to the Netherlands, 2014 Germany, 2018 Belgium. The common theme here is when it comes to European opponents in the knockout round, Brazil just tend to come short. And I know there might be some Brazil folks who are listening to this and might have a word with me.
You might
But
bring up 2002.
say that again.
You might bring up 2002 then when they beat Germany in the final.
Yeah, but that was the final. But I'm talking about like before the final here. So
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I think it'll come down to who they play. Like, I think Brazil is a very strong team, but it's going to be interesting. I actually am not as high on Germany. I just feel Germany recently has just sort of had a lot of like kind of disappointing finishes. I do think France is strong, but I also think that they're probably going to have a shortcoming too. I think, like what if it's Portugal in the final? Like, what if we have the dream? I don't know if it's possible, but the Portugal Argentina final to have Messi and Ronaldo going for the World Cup, that would be very interesting. Though I don't know if that's even possible based on how the groups are like kind of aligned. Is that even
it
possible?
it is possible. I believe if both actually, yeah, it would be possible because if both Argentina and Portugal win their groups, because Argentina's in Group C and Portugal's in Group H. So it surely is possible, but you know, and if they do make it, if each nation makes it to the final, they did it like, and they would have earned it. We'll put it that way.
Yeah,
So
I don't think Portugal's going to make it to the final though. I mean, I think Argentina might make it, but I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tough. I think the Netherlands is looking really strong this time, and they haven't won a World Cup yet. So it would be nice to see them sort of making a run.
And also the thing with the Netherlands is they're in the same, well, not exactly the same predicament, but they didn't make the World Cup in 2018, and how here they are for the first time since 2014. And not to mention with the Netherlands, they have the same coach as they did in 2014. They brought back Louis van Gaal, although this is a very different team compared to the Robin van Persie and the Arjen Robin, and now we're talking about Frankie De Jong, Daniel Mullen. And I do believe that Cody Gakpo is this is Cody Gakpo's tournament to shine. Mark my word, Cody Gakpo is going to be a player to watch this tournament for he's on the Netherlands.
Golden boot winner right here, right?
I wouldn't go that far. I would say that Golden Boot is also up in the air. Um, I do think that it the I think there'll be a big name player who'll get it. Probably somebody like a Harry Kane. I think that's very much in consideration. Cristiano Ronaldo is also in there. Depending, I think it's just a matter of like how many goals these guys can score in the groups, and with you know the thing, like I said, I don't really know what to expect. Like there can all these like there's gonna be like the how the weather will impact the players. Then I think early on in the first like round of group games, I don't expect to see a lot of goals. I think there'll be a lot of like kind of a lot of trying to like everyone, all the players play to their strength, but it's not necessarily how the coach wants them to play. I kind of see how that like the first round of games might be a little bit of like a warm up kind of, if you will, even though it counts. So like I said, I really just don't know what to expect. I will say, as like for a group stage shocker, I don't see Belgium getting out of their group. I do believe that Croatia will win that group, and then Canada will make it out the second.
Wow, Canada over Belgium.
Remember, Canada, like in World Cup qualifying, Canada didn't even lose to the U.S., and I don't even think they lost to Mexico in World Cup qualifying.
Yeah, I mean Canada's good, but like besides Davies, like I mean their team is still pretty like I don't know, it's very unproven at that stage, right?
It is also it is unproven, but so is the United States team.
Well,
Like
that's why I'm not predicting them to do too much. I'm just sort of like, I mean,
no,
I think the U.S. has sort of like some potential. Obviously, Pulisic is good, but like even his like kind of ceiling as like a European player, like it might be reached at this point. He's sort of like a fringe starter, right? Like that's sort of what he is at the European level, right?
that is true, but at the same time, he is also prone to he like when he does play, he plays a long he plays like a string of games in a row, and then
He's a
after
good player, but like I don't know like if he's like I don't know like in terms of like I don't know if the U.S. ever will have that type of like lead striker star. I mean, it's just probably not going to ever happen. But like he's probably as close as they'll get at least for the time being. They have a good team though. Like I think having a lot of their players actually playing in Europe this time, like Josh Sargent, and they actually dropped Zach Steffen right off the roster altogether. That was pretty
no
like kind
Zach
of
Steffen,
surprising. So I mean, I think the U.S. has a lot of promise. Like it'll be interesting. Like so you do how far do you have them going? Round of 16?
I actually have them going to the quarterfinal, um, which is and I actually do believe that the U.S. will get out of the group as group winners. I know I might rattle some England followers too, but if that happens, I believe that the U.S. will win that round of 16 game as the group winner of Group B, and they would likely play like they will play the runner up of Group A, which I believe will be Senegal. The Netherlands will win that group. Remember, Group A has Netherlands, Senegal, Ecuador, and of course the host Qatar. So I I do see that Senegal will make it out. Of course, Senegal, you don't really know if they will get out, considering their star player Sadio Mane is injured at this time. But I do I just think that if you're gonna get out of Group B, you do not want to be the runner up, because I unfortunately do not want to play the Netherlands in the round of 16. So and yes, they're not. This is not the same Netherlands team as 2014, but and the thing with the Netherlands, right? They made it to the round of 16 in the Euros, and then they suddenly lost to the Czech Republic. So maybe there is some weakness in the Dutch team, but I actually do believe that it'll come down to the USA and England battling it out for in the last group game, like when the USA plays Iran and England plays Wales, it'll probably come down to like a goal difference sort of situation. And I think the US will probably get one more against Iran than England will against Wales. So, which means that the US would win the group.
Hey, yeah, no, great prediction. So yeah, it's going to be starting tomorrow, and the U.S. plays on Monday against Wales, right? So
Yes,
that will
Wales.
be the first one to watch. I'm excited. No, it's good to have the U.S. back in the World Cup, first time in 8 years. So gonna be worth watching and all the matchups, and excited to see how the predictions hold. But yeah, I would listen to Ujan here if you're making any sports bets. He's gotten the last two World Cups right. So I mean, I can't say that myself. So yeah, for the record, I had Germany over Brazil in 2018. So that did not go well. So yeah, okay. Well, that will do it for this episode. Yeah, obviously we'll start talking more about soccer, especially as the World Cup is underway. But yeah, this will be it for this week. Obviously, we will be back tomorrow to recap the Patriots-Jets game, and then we'll also kind of discuss the Vikings Thanksgiving game. So enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. And yeah, we'll be back again next tomorrow. And yeah, enjoy soccer too. The first games start tomorrow, right, Ujan? Ecuador, Qatar.
Yes, correct. For those in the US, the games will be on Fox and Fox Sports 1. Just a programming note.
Yep. Okay. Sounds good, everyone. We'll be back again tomorrow. Have a good evening. Bye.